Well, hey, we have a really exciting podcast for you today. The founder of Sandwiches of History and In the Chips with Barry and a few other social media accounts. Come on, welcome to the show, Barry Enderwick. Well, hey, I want to share with you something that I am really loving, and that is Runner's Fix coaching. If you're into running, maybe you're starting to get into running a little bit, or you've been running for a while and want to take it to the next level, can I suggest going to runnersfixcoaching.com. It's led by John Mott, who's been on our show before, but this is going to be a way for you to get some more detailed running and accountability to help you achieve those goals. Through things like constant feedback, a structured schedule, and expert knowledge, John Mott and his team are going to help you take the next level in your running game. So go to runnersfixcoaching.com. Again, that's runnersfixcoaching.com to check it out today. Awesome. Well, here we are. Barry, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah, of course. I'm excited. I was just telling you before we got started, kind of getting everything set up. I stumbled across your page, like Sandwiches of History, somewhere COVID era. It was 2020, 2021 or something like that, at the point where I was just like completely fed up with social media. Everybody was just nasty and like it felt like it was just politics or this or that. And I was like, maybe I'm going to quit and give this up. And then I found your page and I was like, this is what I want. I just want more lighthearted, fun stuff, sandwich talk.
I hope you got more of that.
Yeah, I found more of your pages and more other stuff. There's another guy, random enough, that's like doing a similar thing, but with beer now. And I'm like, this is just what I like. I just like fun little oddities, like stuff like that. Nothing too serious, but
yeah. No, I think that's part of the reason why it kind of took off, actually, is because it stood in contrast to everything else on social media. Most social media, when I started, most social media, and it still is to some extent, people doing dances, doing tricks, doing things to kind of like rile you up, or the politics. And I'm just like, hey, let's make the sandwich from 1920 and see if it's any good.
Yeah, and that's fun. I was telling somebody the other day, because this is kind of a little bit of my frustration with social media, or just maybe some of the circles that I'm around or whatever, is I just feel like everybody has this feeling of like they have to say the most profound or shocking thing next. And then that's just such a slippery slope. It's like somebody says this and then, I got to top that and that and that. And so I saw a post like a week ago of like somebody making the case for why water doesn't hydrate you. And I'm like, where have we come to in a society where we have to like talk about this? And like, I want to know what sandwiches they were making during the Great Depression. So
there you go. Exactly. Yeah. The water doesn't hydrate you is one of the funniest things I've ever heard.
Yeah. And maybe it was satire, but at this point, I don't know. I don't know what is satire and what's not anymore. Sometimes people are like looking like they're too serious about it,
Yep. You're like, gravity doesn't exist. It's like, okay, all right.
Where are we at? Well, hey, how did I'd love to get into kind of the beginning of this, because for you, there's a number of different social pages that you've built up, and even touring now, right? With some of this.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, for Sandwiches of History Live.
That's awesome. Well, where did this all kind of begin for you? Did you have like a culinary background or anything? Like maybe share that with us.
No, growing up, I did not really enjoy food. That mainly because my mom was not a great cook. And so I couldn't understand why people raved about steak. It was shoe leather to me. Vegetables were always gray, stringy. You got the gag reflex going. They were just overcooked and terrible. Yeah. And then I met my fiance and her family, and they loved cooking. They subscribed to like Food and Wine and all this stuff. And I started kind of like, they started to taste, fresh garlic and food. And I was like, oh, this is what, and so I just fell for it. I got really into it. I've always been curious about it. I cook a lot. I clearly eat a lot. But I just enjoy it. I love cooking. I love trying new recipes. And so that kind of got me into the idea of doing at first I was doing potato chip reviews for
Mm-hmm.
potato chips around the world for In the Chips with Barry. And my friend Adam says, "Hey, you should do a vlog." I'm like, "Okay." So at first there were Facebook posts. Then started doing a vlog on YouTube, brought that over to Instagram, had some more success there because they had a limit on how long your clip could be. It could only be 60 seconds.
Yeah.
And that forced me to edit all the ums and uhs and pauses out, and it made it
Sure.
really
Yeah.
quite actually entertaining.
Mm-hmm.
So then, I found this PDF for the Up to Date Sandwich book that was published in 1909 on my computer in late 2018. I thought, wow, this is pretty wild.
Hmm.
This would be kind of fun to do on social media.
Yeah.
And so I did. And I did it on Instagram. But when I chopped down the videos to 60 seconds, the making of videos weren't good. I worked for the In the Chips because those were really quick reviews. But, making a sandwich takes a little bit longer sometimes, and it just wasn't working. So I post a picture and put the making of videos in stories, Instagram stories,
Yeah. Yeah.
which is great, except for the stories disappear after 24 hours.
Sure. Yeah.
So it didn't work. And I was like, you know what? I don't want to figure this out. I'm done. And then TikTok comes along and I I download those stories, stitch them back together, throw them up on TikTok with absolutely no production value added to it. And they
Mm-hmm.
took off. I was like, oh, that's the cheese right there. You
There
need
it
to do
is.
the videos. That's what people want to see.
Yeah.
Obviously, not the photo. And so that took off. And then soon after, Instagram realized that TikTok was eating its lunch,
Mm-hmm.
allowed for longer videos. And so I brought it back to Instagram, and it took off there. So it just sort of, much to my amazement, has become a thing.
Yeah, for sure. Was that something you were planning on? Was there a point where you're like, and I'd love to make it in this like social media vlogging and things like that?
Well, yeah. So first of all, probably important to level set. People will say like, "I wish I had your job," and I'll be like, "Job implies that I earn a living from this," which
Yeah.
I absolutely do not. I
This
do
is
make
fun.
some
Yeah.
money, but it's not. It's not. This is not. This is a side hustle
Sure. Yeah.
at
Yeah.
best. Even with the book and the touring and stuff like that, it's not. It's not a moneymaker yet. Yet,
Hmm.
would I love to do it full time? Absolutely.
Yeah.
But haven't gotten there. No.
That's cool though. And it is fun to watch though. It's cool to see like, yeah, the algorithm, how that's changed too. Cause I feel like I remember that as well. Like there used to be the Instagram posts, they had to be like really quick. Now it's like
Yeah.
what? Now it's a minute and a half is what you get, I think,
Well, yeah, it's interesting because
or you
they
could
said,
do
oh,
longer. Yeah.
you can do reels up to a half hour long or something like that.
Sheesh,
And
yeah.
then when I go to post something that's over 3 minutes, I get a little warning that says, "Hey, you're not going to reach as many people because it's over 3 minutes."
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, "Well, I'm not going to cut down the episode because that's what it is. So whatever." And sure enough, like that was last Sunday, I got that warning. And that sandwich went. I want to say viral, but it probably reached 20,000 more people than a normal video does,
That's
even though I got that
incredible.
warning. So it's just.
Do you remember like what was the first one? I didn't realize that the chips page was earlier than that. I'd be
No.
curious more about that too. But like, what was the first sandwich video that you made that like just took off? You're like, oh, there's something here.
I cannot remember which one in particular. I will say that when it took off on TikTok,
Mm-hmm.
you could watch the follower count just tick up live. Like the
Yeah.
number would just go up live. Likes would go up live. Comments would just, and it was like, what is going on here? This is
Mm-hmm.
insane. Um, so it was pretty early on that it
Yeah.
started to take off. Um, and then it kind of leveled out, and I've been kind of like floating along. And TikTok, of course, does not show your videos to everybody that says they want to see your videos. My average views on a TikTok video would be probably like 10 to 20,000, and I've got 320,000
So
followers.
interesting. Yeah.
So and I'll constantly get this comment of like, "Where have you been? I haven't seen you on my For You page for a year." It's like I
Yeah.
say, "See you tomorrow" at the end of every video to remind you that I post every day. But what are you gonna
Yeah.
do?
That is pretty wild too. You post daily. That's been.
Yeah.
Was there ever a point? This would be the first thing that I would think of. I mean, I've thought about this also, like in just doing this podcast. Is like, is there ever a concern of like, will I run out of sandwiches to make? Did you ever have that
There,
thought? Or
uh, when I first started, yes, but then it's like the first book that I had 400 recipes in it.
oh
Then
wow, okay, yeah.
I find other cookbooks. There's one cookbook called 1001 Sandwiches from 1936.
So you got a
So that's
couple
like what,
years. Yeah.
3 years? Or yeah, it's like And I've found hundreds of books, and people keep sending in books.
That's
They
cool.
send in scans of books, and then I also do sandwiches of our history, where they send in stuff like my dad used to make this crazy sandwich. I'll
Hmm.
do those as well. So I don't think that's I can't imagine that's going to be a problem. I am running up against the wall for international sandwiches. I'm starting to really have to dig in the crates to try and find
Yeah.
recipes that I haven't done yet, but
I have seen a couple because you do those mostly on Sundays, right? Is that the typical thing?
only on Sundays.
Only on Sundays,
International
yeah.
Sandwich Sunday. Yeah.
That's fun. That's so cool. What
Yeah.
yeah, I do you feel like is it now Instagram? Is that kind of the main platform you see the most success on or
Oh
is
yeah.
there okay.
Well, yeah, yes and no. Like Instagram also suffers from they won't show my videos to everyone who has said they want to see my videos.
Hmm.
And it's interesting because when you go to try and get like I don't know, say a brand deal or some sort of like paid gig, they
Yeah.
look at engagement rate. Well, the engagement rate takes into account the number of followers you have and the number of views you get and the number of comments and stuff like that. Well, if you got 346,000, 349,000 followers or whatever, and you're only getting shown to 20,000, that handicaps you right out of the gate. You can't get a good engagement rate from that. So it's pretty interesting. But so I would say
Hmm.
that Instagram is probably the lead. YouTube, even though I don't have as big a following, is growing quite a bit. TikTok is whatever it is,
Yeah, it's just out
and
there now.
Facebook I just do because I have to. And then Reddit's interesting. It's got about 36,000 subscribers to the subreddit. So
Oh wow. What's the I'd be curious if like and maybe that's a big question there, like the uniqueness of the fan bases across platforms. Like I imagine Reddit, there's so many like ideas and tips and stuff like that coming through to you of like new recipes, right?
oh, it's on every platform. I get emails, I get DMs. A lot of people send me stuff like, "Here's a sandwich I made up. You should try." And it's like, well, that's not quite what this is.
Yeah, yeah.
I want the of history part needs to be kind of part of it. Like, I mean,
Hmm.
I bend it a little bit with sandwiches of recent history or sandwiches of our history,
Sure, yeah.
but I can't just be like sandwiches Tim made up when he was drunk one night. Then I start,
100%. Yeah,
I start, then I start getting into dares and things like that, and I don't want that.
for sure. Yeah. I love watching. I mean, there's so many uniqueness to it of like the different um eras to it, right? Like I've seen some of the ones you've post of like you can tell these sandwiches were made like Great Depression era or like do you
Yeah.
feel like you've started to figure that out? Like there's trends you see in different or it's just kind of all around the map?
It's kind of all over the map. Like that 1001 sandwiches, that was put out
Mm-hmm.
in 1936, right? So that's during the Depression.
Hmm.
And it has some in there that are like, why would you make this like the yeast sandwich? Terrible, terrible sandwich.
Yeah.
Um, but it also has like a smoked salmon sandwich and a caviar sandwich. So it's like, okay, well, maybe this was
It's
for everybody. I don't know. Yeah, it's
yeah.
bizarre.
There was one that I saw you post the other day. Was it called the emergency sandwich or
Yes.
what is that?
It was 1920, and it called for using a hard-boiled egg, stale cheese,
Yeah.
which to my mind is just cheese that's been kind of like it's not moldy, but it's like a little bit dry because it's been in the ice box for too long
Yeah,
or
yeah.
whatever.
It's on
And I
its
think it was
way
called an
out. Yeah.
emergency. Yeah, I think it was an emergency sandwich, sort of like, hey, you're gonna have a hard-boiled leg. No, you're gonna have a hard-boiled egg laying around. You're gonna have the
Hmm.
stale cheese laying around. Put them together and make a sandwich really quick. That's what I'm thinking as far as the name goes. But yeah, it was salty.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's interesting.
that's
I
one thing I've
mean,
noticed. That is one thing I've noticed is that a lot of these recipes call for way too much salt.
oh, really? Do you
Yeah.
feel like now that you've tasted, I mean, I'm sure hundreds, you've been doing this for a couple of years now, hundreds of
Oh, it's over a
sandwiches,
thousand.
over a thousand.
Over a thousand.
Sheesh. I
Yeah.
feel like at this point, your
Yeah.
taste buds are just like locked in. Like you've got it down. Is that right? Do you feel like that or?
I mean, I've always been pretty perceptive in that area anyway.
Yeah,
So, but yeah, no, I pick up on things, and salt is pretty easy to pick up on, especially when there's
100%.
too much of it.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I'd love to hear a little bit about the touring aspect. I know it's probably like newer. How did that get brought up and what does that look like to kind of take this show on the road?
okay, so to get to there, we have to back up a little bit.
Okay.
Beginning of 2024,
Hmm.
was it? Yeah. Or no, beginning of 2023, I think. Publisher reached out and said, "Hey, have you ever thought about doing a cookbook?" I'm like,
Hmm.
not really, no. But then I thought about it. I was like, well, actually, I can adapt these recipes, make them so that they make one sandwich because most of them make anywhere from like 5 to 20 sandwiches, and I have to
Wow.
scale it down for the show. And then I could also adjust things so that it has the anchovy paste, but maybe it doesn't have too much anchovy paste, and it becomes a successful sandwich. So I thought, this will be yeah, okay, I'll do a cookbook. So I did a cookbook. Came out fall of last year,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm an unknown quantity. Like no one, I'm not a famous chef. I'm not
Yeah.
a cookbook author. Like no one knows. So the book publisher was never going to send me on a book signing tour.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got this. I visited my friend Bill Oakley, who's a writer, producer on the Simpsons and Futurama and all that.
Oh,
He's
wow.
had a touring show with his friend Josh Weinstein, who also worked on the Simpsons, um, where they had an animated show in the '90s called Mission Hill,
Mm-hmm.
and it ran for like one season and didn't go anywhere. And then during COVID, Adult Swim picked it up and it started to gain traction again.
Oh, wow.
So they decided, oh, let's do this little tour on the 25th anniversary of it. And so
Hmm.
they did a tour. They came to San Francisco. I went up to see him and say hi and meet the guys. And it got me thinking, like, well, what if I did a Sandwiches of History live tour and we could sell tickets and that would help kind of cover the cost of the tour. There you go. I get a
Yeah.
book tour, and it's not coming out of my pocket. I'm not making a ton of money on it, but it's not coming out of my pocket. And so I chatted with their tour producer, Jeremy, and we got together and started figuring out what would Sandwiches of History Live be. What even could it be? Um, and then we've been going to different cities. In some cities, we have 2 shows in a night. Some cities we sell
Mm.
out. Some cities we've had like San Diego. The show was not that great. Wasn't well attended. It was a fun show, but it wasn't
Yeah.
well attended. So yeah, it's kind of fun.
That's cool. You just kind of went for it, made it on your own.
Yeah.
That's awesome. It's cool to see like 2 shows. Like you need back-to-back shows of like people who want to come in and see this or
Well, it was kind of crazy. So it was the very first show, very first night was in Portland, and
mm-hmm.
we had 2 shows. The first one sold out. The second one didn't sell out completely, but it was pretty full.
Yeah.
Not long before that, CBS News Sunday Morning had been in my house for like 8 hours and filming because
That's
I
cool.
was going to be on their show that's after Thanksgiving,
Mm-hmm.
their food show, or before Thanksgiving. And so these are the very first shows. I've never done a live show like this before, and they show up and they film the second show.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, that's great, but it was fun. It's a lot of fun. I've gone to Portland, Seattle, L.A., Brooklyn was insane. We had like 300 people. H. John Benjamin was my guest.
Mm-hmm.
Um, let's see, San Francisco. And where else did we go? Went to Pittsburgh.
Oh, you've
With
been all
Philadelphia,
over. East
Pittsburgh,
Coast, West Coast.
Boston.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Now we're going to next up is New Orleans, Boston. Then we're going to do Detroit, Toronto. We're probably going to do Tempe, Vegas, and Denver at some point. And then in July, I'm doing Dublin, Ireland, and London, England.
That is awesome. We got to get you out here to the
It's,
Tampa area at some point to figure out
I
that.
do. Yeah, I've got to do a show down in Florida because I know I've got a lot of folks down there that are anxious to see it. I just got to make sure that it's I don't know if there is a central location, but
Yeah,
somewhere that's easy to get to.
for sure. We could figure that out. I bet like yeah, we're pretty central Florida here and where I'm at. But what is the show
Okay.
exactly like? Is the goal like making sandwiches live? You bring a couple and
No, well, not exactly. So one of the things I wanted to do originally was do a show and the next day partner with a restaurant and do a pop-up where I would offer sandwiches of history.
mm-hmm.
Um, we could not get that together for this at all. It's too much. It was too much work. It's going to have to be. I think that's going to be the next iteration of the tour for 2026. Is actually a pop up with
That's
a little
cool.
bit of a show as
Yeah.
opposed to a standalone show. But the show is basically the idea is I go out, I get introduced by Jeremy. I do a history of sandwiches of history, the account, because I never really talk about that on the show.
Mm-hmm.
I play an animation that's a brief history of me, so because I never talk about my life on this show. And then I do a brief history of sandwiches. Then we bring people up. We do a trivia battle where they compete for
That's cool.
merch and fun stuff
Yeah.
and prizes. And then I bring out a special guest. We make a sandwich from the book, cut it into quarters, and plus it up 3 of them with ingredients that the audience gets to choose in advance via a form that gets emailed to them. Then we rate them, evaluate them, talk. A little bit of an interview kind of thing situation because some of them are celebrities, so why
Mm-hmm.
not?
Yeah.
And then they take off, and I do a Q&A with the audience.
That's awesome, man. What a fun way to really get creative with like bringing sandwiches and that kind of account to life.
Yeah,
That's
it was because I figure, people don't know much about the history of sandwiches history. They don't know much about me, so
hmm
that's something that I get asked a lot. So I thought, well, okay, if I get asked this much about it, why don't I just make that part of the show?
yeah,
And then the trivia battle was Jeremy's idea, and it's brilliant because people get
that's
into it.
cool. Well, let's do
Yeah.
get to. I'd love to get to you as well. Obviously, you mentioned earlier, like we said, hey, not necessarily from a culinary background, maybe far from it. Like, right, you said your mom wasn't necessarily the greatest cook.
Yeah.
What background? What do you do? What was kind of been a little bit about like you and maybe your like professional career?
Okay, I would say that I started my professional career as a graphic designer.
Okay.
I worked for myself for a few years, and then realized I'm terrible at biz dev. And then I just looked for a job. This was in 2001. I was looking for a job, and it was at the height of the dot-com bust. Everyone was
hmm
leaving San Jose. I was living in San Diego, and I took a job with a dot-com here in San Jose, or in the Bay Area. A little company called Netflix.
Oh wow.
And it
Yeah.
was very much a startup then. It was like we had 120 people, then we had layoffs, went down to 75 people in the
Mm.
company. Um, but then stayed there for 11 years and transformed from graphic designer into marketer. Learned
Mm.
everything I could about brand positioning, marketing, messaging, customer acquisition, conversion, that kind of stuff. And since then, have been applying that at various roles in-house to companies, but also as a partner in Kaizen Creative Partners. So
That's incredible,
it's
man.
basically
Yeah.
pretty wild.
That's wild. Yeah. I remember being like, dude, how was I? I probably was in high school, maybe early college or something like that. Like when Netflix was the order system, when I got the like
Yeah.
DVDs in the mail and it felt weird. Even
Oh
now
yeah.
looking back on it, like that's a lot of trust. You're just throwing the DVD, hoping it comes back in one piece. I'm sure it didn't
Yep.
often, but it
No.
worked out. Yeah.
Uh, no. The business model was very much a we trust you. Now, if like, oh, this DVD went missing, oh, and the next one went missing, and the next one went missing, we'd be like, okay, we need to talk,
hmm
because either you're putting them in danger, or like, or you're stealing them. So,
Yeah.
and we had issues with, like, we had mail carriers steal them, a couple of them.
Really. Yeah.
So yeah, but it's by and large, people were like, no, this is great. They loved the benefits of it,
Mhm.
because it was just so ridiculously convenient.
Yeah. What do you feel like was the most unique thing? I've personally, other than starting up this podcast a while back, never been necessarily a part of a startup like that. What do you feel like is one of the most unique or important things you've learned from being a part of something small like that and kind of watching it grow to what it is today?
I think being sorry, I just got a notification on my screen here.
You're good.
Um, I think the biggest thing was to be strategic. You have to be both strategic and tactical, right? So
Hmm.
you have to do the day to day. You have to figure out. You have to knock things off your list. You got to execute, but also you need to stop and think about what's coming down the pike. What do things look like 5 years from now? Because
Yeah,
that's what Reed. When I first started there, Reed was saying, like, yeah, it's movies are gonna be streamed. It's gonna happen, but we're
hmm
just not there yet. And so our strategy is to grow big on DVD, then move into streaming when it's time.
yeah,
And so we did. And then, like, the whole move into streaming was something that caught everyone by surprise except us, because we knew we were going to do that.
for sure.
And then, the Netflix originals is the same sort of thing. It's like there needs to be a differentiator for Netflix, because we at the time we licensed all the content was licensed from other people, and so they were going to stop licensing it, or other people were going to be licensing it. So there's not going to be a differentiator. So we needed to create original content that was phenomenal.
Yeah.
And so it's just, for me, it's the idea of thinking, like, what's coming down the pike, what do we need to do, how do we need to think about that, but also executing your day to day stuff.
Yeah, that's awesome. And what a way to be a visionary, but also patient, right? Like, this is where it's going to get to, but we have to do we have to do it this model for a little while until we get to that place. And like,
Yeah.
it's great, true, especially like in the day we live in now in 2025, where there are so many streaming platforms, you
Hmm.
will always hold on to Netflix because of some of the originals that you love, like Stranger Things or whatever the case is. Of like, Yeah,
Yeah.
it's great to. I'm sure that was part of the early on plans too. Is like building that in house. It's
Yeah. Yeah.
really cool to
Yeah.
see.
Absolutely. Yeah, and if even if you don't hold on to Netflix, you'll come back to Netflix if every one of your friends is talking about a show that's only on Netflix.
Yeah, 100%. Man, it's smart. Well, speaking of like the 5 year kind of thought, do you have thoughts for like 5 years of like the kind of, or maybe what's the future look like with sandwiches of history, with the chips page and all that kind of stuff?
The chips page is kind of like my party hat. I don't really have
Yeah,
any
just for
sort of
fun.
vision
Yeah.
on that. Yeah, exactly. For Sandwiches of History, I would like to put out another cookbook, Sandwiches of Our History, the ones that folks sent in that aren't
Mm,
necessarily in cookbooks.
yeah.
That would be fun. I definitely want to do a tour where it's, like I said, pop-up tour, partnering with restaurants where we offer Sandwiches of History and plus ups that you can buy, and then that would benefit local charities.
Mm,
Um, but I don't. This this was not started with the idea that it was going to be a thing.
yeah.
So I don't have a grand vision or a grand strategy for this because it
Yeah.
just sort of happened.
Yeah.
Now I probably should start thinking in those terms, but yeah,
But it is cool when you're like your hobby, your thing that you do for fun. You're like, oh man, people really like this. Like this is
yeah,
taking off. Yeah.
it's mind blowing. It's great. It's very very gratifying.
Yeah. Well, I got to ask a couple of these questions. We'll start with chips first. I got to know,
Okay.
like, obviously the least favorite and the favorite that you found throughout the years of doing this. And we can start with maybe like least favorite chips. We'll get to sandwiches in a little bit, but something that was just tough to get through.
Well, I mean, the one chip challenge is tough to get through.
Oh,
I
yeah.
just did another one from England from this company called Mr. Sing's,
Mm-hmm.
and they're called the Seven Deadly Sins, and it was very similar. It was good flavor, but holy smokes, I cannot take that kind of brutal punishment. But I mean, those to me aren't the worst chips. The worst chips to me are the ones that don't pay off the flavor or don't have a good flavor going. Like no one puts out a chip that's intentionally terrible
Yeah,
flavor,
yeah.
right? So, but to me, it's like if you get something and it's like spicy, hot chipotle fried chicken, and it doesn't taste anything like that, and it's not hot, those
Mm-hmm.
are the ones that are like just the worst.
Yeah, with
Because
all the
you
crazy
bought this
flavors.
bag,
Yeah.
yeah, you bought this bag, you got it home, and now it's just you're gonna go chuck it in the trash because it's not doing anything for you.
Yeah.
The best flavors, there's one from Lay's of China called numb and spicy or something. It uses Sichuan peppercorns, and it is fantastic. Oh, another one from China, cumin lamb skewers.
Hmm.
So good, so amazingly good. Thailand has fantastic Pringles, believe it or
Yeah.
not, which because the Pringles here are kind of hit or miss as far as flavor in
Sure.
America, but the ones from Thailand, they'll do like a hot pot flavor and that sort of thing. So it's
Are those
oh so
hard to
good.
get your hands on, or is it just you got to find the right website and you can order them?
It's gotten a lot easier, a lot
Yeah.
easier. Like so, World Market now carries a ton of international chips.
Hmm.
You can also get stuff from International Yums. You can get stuff on Amazon. Yeah, and I live here in San Jose. We've got H Mart, we've got Ningyan Market, we've got Mitsuwa, we've got Ranch 99. We've got all these Asian grocery stores. So I can
Yeah.
go
Yeah.
there and so it's gotten a lot easier than it was say like 6 years ago.
For sure. I'm gonna have to look online for some of that stuff. I know, like, we're in Central Florida, and Publix has the lockdown on all grocery stores. It's like that's your pretty
Oh,
much your one option. Have you heard of Publix before?
what? Yeah, I actually went to one for the first time in Nashville last month when I was there for a show.
Yeah. So I'm in the town that Publix was started in. So like in Lakeland, Florida here. So it is like
Okay.
lockdown. We actually just got an
Yeah.
Aldi, which was kind of like wild because it's they allowed an Aldi
Yeah.
in the town. But yeah, I'll have to try that. All right. So for sandwiches, I'd love to know like what's the least favorite sandwich that you've made over these years of putting these together.
I think there's a tie. I think
Okay.
the yeast sandwich that I mentioned before.
Yeah. What is
There's a
that, by the way?
compressed.
Yeah.
You know what a compressed yeast cake is, right?
Yeah. 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 I
So
think so. Yeah.
normally you buy yeast, it's dry and
Right.
whatever. The
Mm-hmm.
compressed yeast cake has a little bit of moisture to it. It's actually just a little bit, not a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And so what you do is you take that and you smash it together with table sauce, which, depending on what book you read, is either ketchup or Worcestershire sauce. And then you put that between buttered bread. And I've never eaten wallpaper paste, but I'm kind of imagining
This
that
is
or spackle. Yeah,
might be better.
awful. It
Yeah.
was awful. The other was the oyster sandwich, and I've had a couple of versions of these, but it was
Oof.
from the Up to Date Sandwich Book of 1909,
Mm-hmm.
and it was chopped up raw oysters, olive oil,
Ooh.
Tabasco, in between buttered bread with lettuce, and it was just I like raw. I like oysters on the half shell.
Yeah.
I like fried oysters. I don't have an aversion to oysters whatsoever. This was just a textural nightmare.
Jeez. Yeah. This like
Yeah.
slimy and the bread. People were just sandwiching what they could get their hands on back then, you know?
I don't understand why they would think that that was a good idea. Why would you chop them up? I mean, I don't know. The
Yeah.
whole thing was just a bad idea.
Yeah. Is there one that has stood out to you over the years where it's like, man, I still make that sandwich like regularly?
Well, there's I'm gonna say okay. There's a couple.
Mm-hmm.
One, there's the tomato from Turkey and the Wolf in New Orleans,
Mm.
and this would be a sandwich of recent history, but it's Texas toast, buttered on both sides and toasted, set aside, and then you put tons of Duke's mayo, uh, salted roasted sunflower seeds, tomatoes, salt, pepper, way too much dill, way too much basil, and lemon juice. And
Mm.
it is like you think it's going to be good, and then you bite into it, and you're like wondering how can it be this good?
Yeah.
It is so good. Um, but as far as sandwiches of history, there's that I did, and it's in the book called the Bacon Olive Club that
Mm-hmm.
is just delicious. Now, granted, it's a little salty, but it's still
Yeah. Yeah.
it's a very very tasty sandwich. And of course, any of the international sandwiches, there's a reason they're still around. And of course, Reuben, who does see this is the problem. I can't choose one.
There's too many. Yeah. I thought about that as I
Yeah,
was asking it. I was like, yeah, out of the thousands that you've had, please choose. Please narrow this down in this one instance.
banh mi. How can I forget the banh mi? Anyway, yeah, it's so many good ones.
Yeah, it's cool to see. And you also have like an ice cream page, right?
Yeah,
Is that
Barry's Ice
another
Cream
kind of party
O'Clock.
hat for fun or?
It is. It is. Like all the other ones, Sandwiches of History, I post every single day. In the Chips with Barry, I post Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then I do Canned Sandwich on Saturday. And then
Mm-hmm.
everything else is kind of ad hoc. Barry's Ice Cream O'Clock was me wanting to combine sweet and savory ideas that
Mm-hmm.
I had. And so I did things like Thanksgiving stuffing ice cream.
Yeah.
So basically, a butter ice cream is the base with infused with the flavors of sweet. It's sweet. It's not totally savory,
Yeah.
but it's combining those two, and it was so good. Gochujang ice cream.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's another one of those fun accounts that when I get unfortunately my ice cream maker kind of broke, so I need to get a new one.
Oh no. Yeah. So that account's on hold for a few minutes here, a
Well,
few days.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Oh
Yeah.
man, that's cool. Yeah, it is as fun as it is cool to see also like I'm sure you've had people reach out to you. They're like, "Oh, I tried this. Like I went home, bought the ingredients, like tried this at
Oh yeah,
home." Like
yeah.
I've done that a couple times for a few that I've watched on your account over the years. And
Oh,
also
cool.
seeing like it's cool to see that like it's like as funny as fun as it is, like a good sandwich when you have one too. Like
Right.
I interviewed. There's a local sandwich shop here called Jesse's Gourmet Sandwiches. And it's worth the shout out. It's so good what she's
Nice.
created, and it's kind of like an Italian flair on it too. But like
All right.
you'll go there and pay like a couple dollars more to get like the good stuff, as
Oh
opposed
yeah,
to just what you slap
absolutely.
on some bread and like this is a sandwich.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
There's utilitarian sandwiches, and then there's sandwiches.
Yeah, 100%. You're like, I need to go back there. Um,
Yep.
I imagine that it's been probably really encouraging to like have the fan base that you have, and I'm sure the people reaching out. Like, what has that been like to just see all the like support coming in from? I imagine it's all over, right? Like you've overseas and
Yeah.
all kinds of stuff.
Yeah. No, I've gotten DMs from Australia, Tasmania, Germany, UK, Scotland, New Zealand. And when I do lives, I get people from all over the world popping on saying hi, and it's been gratifying. It's amazing
Mm-hmm.
the sandwich community out there. What's also fun is like I get shared with parents will say like, oh, my kid likes to do, and do sandwiches of history, and they'll record the kid doing sandwiches of history and send it to me. I'm like, that's adorable.
That's cool.
Or people say, like, we watch you every night before we go to bed, which kind of a mixed blessing there. That means I'm putting people to sleep, but that's okay.
It's calming. That's the
It's
pro.
calming. Yeah, yeah, exactly. But it is fantastic, and one of the great things about the tour has been being able to meet people in real life that I've actually
Hmm.
conversed with in comments and DMs over the years, and I finally
Yeah.
get to meet them in person, and it's fantastic.
That's really cool to hear. Yeah, I it's cool to see, especially like as someone who's doing something similar, like creative realm and all that. Like when you get that, like you put something out there and you're like, oh, this is me, like being creative, going for it, and to get that kind of response and like, hey, like we love this. This is fun to listen to. It's like, oh, cool. My creativity is like it's making a difference somewhere,
Yeah,
even if it's
yeah,
just for
exactly. It's
fun or
positive.
yeah,
It's positively impacting someone's life, and that's
hmm
I know that's not curing cancer, but it's still something.
for sure. It's putting a smile on somebody's face. Like I said from the beginning, like
Yeah,
this was a time like I stumbled across your page when I was like, dude, I feel done with social media. It was just kind of not a place I wanted to go to. And it
yeah.
was fun and lighthearted. I've shared it with like a ton of friends. Maybe I know we're gonna wrap up here in just a few minutes. One last thing is, for someone who's listening to this and maybe has aspirations of getting into this realm of like putting out their creativity on social media or just kind of, starting up a dream like that, I guess. What would be kind of some encouragements that you would give them or just some like tips and tricks you've learned along the way?
Well, I will say that I think part of the reason why Sandwiches History has had any success is because of consistency and persistence.
Hmm.
There's some famous phrase of like most people who fail are like just right. They stop doing something right before they succeed or something. I forget what the actual quote is, but the idea is like just do it. Just set a time that you're going to do it and be consistent about it. You don't have to post every day, but if you're going to post every Tuesday, post every Tuesday, right?
Yes.
Let
Yeah.
people know that you're posting every Tuesday and just be consistent and be persistent and keep going. The other thing is to adapt and learn, right?
Hmm.
So I've done things different. I don't. If you look at an early video of mine, it's not the same as my current videos. I've hopefully gotten better.
Yeah.
Knock on wood. But the idea is to like be open. Like you still want to do what you want to do, and you shouldn't necessarily like. I've had people kind of get on me about like, well, you should use period era plus ups, and it's like, no, 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 no. The premise of this is I make sandwiches from old recipes as written, then
Hmm.
plus them up for the modern palate if they have potential.
Yeah.
That's the thing. So I appreciate that you want me to do that. I'm not going to do that, but
Yeah.
I will like if something is not working, I'll just try and figure out okay, what
Hmm.
can I do to make it work, or maybe I could try something different and see how that does.
For sure.
So
Yeah.
just
But it's
you know,
you being
yeah,
you. It's like this is
yeah,
what I enjoy
yeah,
doing. And I think people love that. That's what
yeah,
especially post COVID era, so much stuff has gone online, podcasts, social media, all that kind of stuff. It's like you can sniff
yeah.
out somebody not being themselves, you know?
Oh
You
yeah,
can
yeah.
you can
I got
sense it.
asked early on, actually. I got asked early on if this was an act. And I'm like, I don't have that kind of skill set. No, this is just me.
Yeah. Which is cool to
That
see. And
helps.
and it's cool to like meet you now too and also see like just the same like kindness I sense on the videos too coming through as well. And I love
Thank you.
the like the comment you made too, like consistency for anybody trying to go for something. I'm still very early on. This podcast is like 7, 8 months or so. But made a
Okay.
decision early on where I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna do this every week. Every week there's a new episode. And
Good.
I've seen it grow. I took 1 week off where I was like, oh, people might not listen on some holiday, and I took it off. And then the next week I was like, oh dang, it's like I gotta rebuild again. So if
Yeah.
you're gonna go for
Yeah.
something, be prepared and go
Yes,
for it helps.
exactly.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah. And
cool.
the other thing is that you're not necessarily doing this because you want to go viral or you want to get huge.
Hmm.
You just want to do something you enjoy. Like the reason why I post every single day at noon is because this is really my lunch. And
Yeah.
the reason why I decided to have this as my lunch is I knew that if I did more than that, I'd burn out.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea is like, okay, let's just make this my lunch, and then I'll film it, and then I'll edit it and upload it, and then that'll be the sandwich for the next day.
That's awesome. Well, Barry, thank you again so much for being
Right.
on the podcast. I really do appreciate it. Thanks for responding
Yeah.
to my DM and being on the show.
Of course. Of course.
I always do
Thanks
this.
for having me.
Yeah, of course. I hope that you do come to Florida, to Central Florida area, and we can have you here. I know there's a crew of us here who'd love to come out and to be at the show.
And if we can find a venue that has a stage, a projector, and can seat about 100 people,
Yeah.
we're in.
We can talk. We can figure something out. But
Okay,
I
cool.
always do this with 1 minute left. What's something you maybe just leave with our audience? One thing, particularly too, I'd love to kind of roll the red carpet out for you. What are ways that people can find you, like your handles and website and all that before we head out?
Well, Sandwiches of History is available on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Reddit, and YouTube. In the Chips with Barry is available on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and YouTube. And then the other ones are just on Barry's Ice Cream O'Clock, Barry's Cooking Again, Craft Beer Barry. Those are all on Instagram only. As far as what I'd leave people with, this is going to be really corny, and I just want to own it.
Yeah.
I want to own it.
Preparedness.
But there was a quote in Ted Lasso that was attributed to Ralph Waldo Emerson.
There we go. Yeah.
Even though I don't know that he actually said it, but the idea of being curious, not judgmental. That is such a great way to live. Because a lot of people are ready to just jump the gun and say something, as opposed to try and learn before they say something. And I'm guilty of that too. And so I have to constantly remind myself to let me get context, because context is everything. So understanding that what the situation is important. So that quote sticks with me, even though I don't think it is his.
Yeah, that's awesome though. Well, super encouraging. Again, Barry, thank you so much, and hopefully we can do this again someday.
Thank you. I had a great time.
Of course.